calculate the formal charges, we need to know the valence electrons of the free neutral atom, which will less the assigned electrons of the atom in the molecule. Let us put this formula in practice. We have that example of 3 possible Lewis structures of thiocyanate ion, that is NCS-. So let's see these 3 examples and find the formal charges of each atom in the 3 different structures. Know that the number of valence electrons of a free neutral atom of nitrogen is 5 electrons. Now let's get the number of atoms in the structure we have for nitrogen. To calculate this, or to find this, you need to add the lone pairs, then the bond, you divide the bond by half. So between carbon and nitrogen there is 1 bond, so 1 electron will go to nitrogen, 1 electron will go to carbon. So if we count the lone pairs on the nitrogen, we have 3 multiplied by 2, that is 6, plus 1, which will give us 7 electrons assigned to nitrogen. Now if we less this, you'll find -2. So the charge for the nitrogen in this compound is -2. For carbon, we know the valence electron, it is 4 electrons. But what of in this molecule? How many electrons are assigned to carbon? Remember, we are saying if there is a bond, we need to divide. So carbon here has 4 bonds to read. So if you divide these 4 bonds, instead of saying it has 8 electrons, it will have 4 electrons. So 4 minus 4, it is 0. The formal charge of carbon is 0. Let's go to sulfur. The neutral atom of sulfur has 6 electrons as the valence electrons. Now what are the electrons associated to sulfur in our molecule? We have 1 lone pair plus 3 bonds. Now these bonds, remember, we need to divide the electrons involved. So it is 2 plus 3, which is 5. So if we less this, we'll have +1. So the formal charge of sulfur in this molecule, it is +1. Steps now to the second Lewis structure. So for the second Lewis structure, let's start with nitrogen. Nitrogen, it has the valence electrons of a free atom, which is 5 electrons. Now, what are the electrons in this molecule associated to nitrogen? We have 2 lone pairs and 2 bonds. So the electrons for the lone pairs, we get all of them. Then for the bonds, we need to divide. So from the bonds, we'll get 2 electrons plus 4 electrons. So minus, we'll say it has 6. So the total there will be -1. So nitrogen will have a -1 as the formal charge. Let's go to carbon. Carbon, the neutral atom for carbon has 4 electrons. Then what are the electrons associated to carbon in this molecule? It is also 4 electrons. So if we less this, we get the formal charge, which is 0. Then lastly, when you take sulfur, the valence electron for a free atom of sulfur, it is 6 electrons. Now, what of in this molecule? In this molecule, it has 2 lone pairs and 2 bonds, which will result in 6 electrons. So even sulfur will have the formal charge of 0. Remember, if you sum up the formal charge, it should give you the final charge of the molecule. At this point, you can try to work out the formal charges of the third possible Lewis structure. And I hope you will find that for nitrogen, it will have the formal charge of 0, and carbon, it will have a formal charge of 0, while sulfur will have a formal charge of -1. At the end, you should get these as the formal charges of the 3 molecules. So we have this molecule, this one, and this Lewis structure. So if you have those formal charges, then we are ready to answer the B question. So B said, which Lewis structure is the preferred one? So we have these 3 possible Lewis structures. Which one is the preferred one? So only one structure is preferred among these 3. Now, what guides us to answer which structure is the best? Well, what guides us is that if any negative formal charge which is in the molecule, it should be assigned to the more electronegative element, while a positive formal charge should be assigned to a less electronegative element. Now, the atoms we have, nitrogen is the more electronegative, so we expect that the negative charge should be assigned to nitrogen. Further, we need to have the formal charges with the smallest magnitude. So with these 2 reasons, we can conclude that second, or the molecule which is on the middle, is the best structure of NCS ion. You can try to answer the